of Rotary International. She has been sponsored by the Corsica, France Rotary Club, and Ted Ballwig, as you've heard, has served as our host counselor for her, along with his wife Joan, and our thanks to both of you for doing that. We appreciate it as well. Veronique holds a PhD in neuroscience and is a neuropsychologist and psychologist practitioner, and she would like to take a few minutes here just to provide us with highlights of her research. Immediately following our luncheon, as we mentioned last week, she will give a longer version of her research presentation for anyone who is interested. The half-hour presentation will be held in the Capitol Room just across the hallway, for anyone who would like to attend. I'd also like to mention, as you heard, that her friend Stéphane is here all the way from France to hear this presentation, to be with her, and we're happy that you're here too, Stéphane. Thank you for coming. So, Veronique, if you'd come to the podium, please.
Thank you, President Eros. Thank you, everyone. I'm so nervous to speak today because I need to improve my English. I think it's the second time I speak here, but I'm going to try. It's a challenge for me. 2001 was my first year of clinical practice at Hôpital Notre-Dame de la Miséricorde in the neurology department and stroke unit. The same question always comes up. Why is it that one patient can walk and talk after an ischemic stroke, but his neighbor, who has the same brain lesion and localization, is not able to walk or talk? Trying to answer this question seemed almost impossible. Firstly, this research could only take place with a team of specialists, neurosurgeons, neurologists, neuroradiologists, neuropsychologists, and other specialists. Furthermore, the lack of financial resources, geographical location, represented an obstacle to the possibility of setting up a project of this type. This happened on the island of Corsica, which has 300,000 people and 1 million in the summer. With a general hospital, excellent doctors and surgeons, but absolutely nothing in the field of neuroscience. No specialists, no research, no finding, no logistic, and no functional MRI. Very difficult for research. What to do? I didn't allow this to throw me off. I decided to start from the beginning. Set up a memory, resource, and research center. After months and years of discussions and hard work, I promise you it was very difficult, the Memory Resource Center project was successful in 2007, and I received government approval. It was the first memory center installed in a general hospital in France. It's very important for me because you have to know the research center, you can find a research center only in a university hospital. And we don't have university hospital in Corsica, it's a general hospital. During this period, after reading several articles from every interesting and brilliant authors about neuroplasticity, an important date, 2012, an article that intrigued me, an author, Hugues Dufaux. A title, The Brain Repairs Itself. A phrase, The Error of Broca. Paul Broca was a French physician, surgeon anatomist, and anthropologist. He is best known for his research on Broca's area. Broca's area is involved with articulated language. When I read this, I thought 150 years of medical history are swept away. This neurosurgeon, 49, received the equivalent for the Nobel Prize. He was also invited to 40 international conventions every year to talk about his research on the brain. He is a specialist in brain tumors, especially glioblastomas. It's a tumor that arises from astrocytes. These tumors are usually highly malignant. It's cancerous because the cells reproduce quickly and they are supported by a large network of blood vessels. His technique involves removing brain tumors on patients while they are awake. To date, Hugues Dufaux operated on more than 500 people and 90% of them are still alive. Less than 0.5% retain symptoms following surgery. Hugues Dufaux explains, Broca's observations in 1861 were correct, but the generalities he drew from them are false. He has operated dozens of patients in this area without any consequences for language. I said, what happened? The key was neuroplasticity, the key words. The brain's ability to create new connections. The brain is able to reorganize itself, particularly with a tumor that grows slowly. Sorry, I'm going to cross the field, but 2 years after, 2014, I met with the president of the Rotary Foundation, and I talked about my interest of neuroplasticity as a key of rehabilitation. He believes in this project, and a few months later, the 3rd April 2050, I leave my country for one of the best universities in the United States. Unbelievable. Today, 10 months after, you can imagine how much your support has been beneficial and meaningful. With these first years, thanks to you, the university and the hospital have created new projects to try to develop research in this field. You have to know in Corsica, because we don't have university hospital, the university don't work with the hospital. It was unthinkable just a few months ago. Helping me to integrate an excellent university, you also give me the opportunity to bring hope to my patients, their families, my team and my region. The research in this field can save so many people. For this, thanks a million. And more personally, I also want to point out that you offered me one of the most beautiful gifts that anyone can offer, which is the opportunity to learn more. I hope also to have the opportunity to continue my training research and bring to my region a solid foundation in terms of research and knowledge, and to be able to bring answer. Thank you so much. I'm really grateful. Thank you for your generosity. And if I may, I would like to thank you, my referents, my friends, and of course, every Rotarian here. But for my friends in particularity, I would like to tell you, thank you so much for everything. Shortly after my arrival, I called Joanne and I was crying. I need your help, Joanne. I broke my foot and I have a sprain. I have not yet hung up. She was already here. I'm sorry, Ted. I know she was working with you, but she dropped everything to help me. She stayed until the evening with me to be sure that I was well. Ted, Joanne, a few words again. Savory accent, spicy food, waffles, bourbon sherry. Yummy. Joanne, my coffee every Saturday morning, because I have to tell you, to practice my English, because when I arrived, I didn't speak English. My English was awful. And when I talked for the first time with the professor, I didn't understand nothing. And I said to my referent, oh, I think I'm going to go back in France, because I don't understand nothing. And I worked very hard, and I made some progress. It's not enough, but I made some progress. Thank you to share a part of your life with me, to give me the opportunity to understand the culture, to practice my English, to meet beautiful people. And Ted, I told you, it's not the first time you won. I eat spicy food. I don't know how, but for the hot sauce, please, you will have to wait a little more. Thanksgiving, Christmas, you let me cook the specialty from Corsica. Incredible. It was a Corsican American. But that I have to tell you, it's Joanne sing very well. To characterize you, some words, a few words: generosity, altruism, care and love. And for this, thank you for your friendships. Thank you to become a family. And my last word, of course, for my fiancé, thank you to be here every time when I have problem, when I'm happy, for everything. Thank you so much. Thank you, President.
As I move forward, Andrew will talk to us about athletic training students for brain safety, ATSBS. This group seeks to educate the UW campus and the Madison community on the short-term and the long-term consequences of brain injuries, including concussions. The group was formed in 2012 with a mission to promote and educate communities about prevention, recognition, and management of brain injuries. Dr. Winterstein is the director of the Commission on the Accreditation of Athletic Training Education, CAATE program, and is a clinical professor of the Department of Kinesiology, UW-Madison. His academic interests include studying emerging technologies and their use in teaching and learning, medical humanities and their application to athletic training education, organizational dynamics and behaviors in sports medicine settings, and outcome measures following injuries. He is a member of the Wisconsin Athletic Trainers Association and the National Athletic Trainers Association, and holds a BS degree from the University of Arizona, an MS degree from the University of Oregon, and a PhD degree from UW-Madison. Andrew, welcome to the podium.
Thank you very much, President Brown. Boy, at the start of lunch today, sitting next to President Brown was a little like Don Corleone in the wedding scene when everybody had a request and kept coming up. It was pretty impressive. I'm a little nervous about this anniversary of the pay a penny for the performing monkey thing. I hope that's not an indication of where we're going to go. This is very sweet to have this opportunity to come and chat a little bit about the program that I am responsible for at the UW-Madison. And then as I looked out across the audience, it's like I have this wonderful slice of my 30 years in Madison and my career here is I got to say hello to my old friend Scott Flanagan from Edgewood College, who was a manager for the men's basketball team in 1988 when I started as an athletic trainer for that team. And then obviously Dean Rouse is here, who has been such an influential campus leader for my time in Madison. And my good friend Dawn Krim from the School of Ed External Relations Office, who we actually met when she used to patrol the sidelines at the field house with our women's basketball team. We won't say how many years ago, but a little while ago, not terribly so. And she's been such a wonderful supporter of our program through the School of Education. And then it was a real treat to bump into Kathy Poi, who had the good sense and vision to give me a nice partial appointment at University Health Service. Thank you so much, by the way. Many years ago, because she had the foresight to see that we could bring some of our services to the general student population and not just our athletes. So it's really quite a thing. And I think I saw somebody look like they tried to sell me a car or insurance or something at some point, but I can't quite pick out everybody. Thanks so much for having us. Oops, we got it. There we go. So The athletic training program is what we like to call a student-centered health science program at the UW-Madison. And we try to do best by our students, and we're trying to prepare healthcare providers to go out and work in a variety of settings. So we prepare students for careers in athletic training. Athletic trainers work anywhere people are physically active. You can find athletic trainers in all the obvious places: UW-Madison, the Green Bay Packers, the Milwaukee Brewers, high schools and things like that. But you can also find athletic trainers at your doctor's office, at a sports medicine clinic, in industrial situations. They have athletic trainers up at the Rippin' Good Cookie Factory, helping people who help make their cookies, and across the street at the Speed Queen washer place they used to hire athletic trainers. So there's athletic trainers working in all sorts of settings with active people. So what is athletic training? Well, we take a great pride in injury prevention. We respond to emergent situations. We try to provide treatment and rehabilitation, and work with active populations in a variety of settings. So we're going to try to pull up a little video. We had to do a little gymnastics with this, and I think it'll work.
What I like most about the athletic training program at UW-Madison is that we have very small class sizes, which, coming from a tiny high school like the one I did, is really nice because you get to know the people really well.
We go to every single class with only 18 other people, so we know everyone and get really individualized attention from the best preceptors and the best professors who have first-hand experience of what happens and what really works and how to be successful in the world of athletic training.
The best thing about it is just that you get to learn by doing. I don't like to sit still in class most of the time, so when we're in lab, when we're doing our clinical work, I like to move around, learn by doing.
The highlight for me in the athletic training program is for sure the clinical work. Being able to work with Division I athletes is such a blessing, and it helps you learn, and you get to work with some of the best athletic trainers in the country who get to teach you hands-on.
The athletic training program at UW-Madison is a special program because it's one of the few programs at the undergraduate level where students have the opportunity to practice clinically at the same time as they're working in the classroom and learning techniques that they can put into practice that very same day.
Athletic trainers are healthcare professionals. They collaborate with physicians, and they work in several areas, mostly in injury prevention, clinical diagnosis, emergency care, therapeutic interventions for injuries, rehabilitation and reconditioning.
I've worked with various teams on campus. I've worked with the football team, the basketball team, the cross-country team. I've also worked at La Follette High School, one of the local high schools, where I was able to kind of design my own rehab program.
Our students in the athletic training program have a really strong science foundation, and that means that they're really able to jump right into the components of athletic training that are really important: anatomy and palpation. And our students are really smart, and they're able to think critically and apply those concepts on a daily basis in the sports that they work with and they see in a clinical setting.
I love the fact that the kids are so smart. They come in and they already know a lot of things from what they've learned in classes and in the textbooks and things. We can contribute some more of the hands-on things and some of the real-world scenarios and real-life practice scenarios, but I love the way those have been kind of combined over the years, and we don't just put kids out in situations on road trips and you have to kind of fend for yourselves, so to speak. We kind of do things together more now.
Our program has an outstanding success rate on the Board of Certification exam. That's the national exam that all athletic trainers must pass to practice athletic training. So for the last 4 years plus, we've had a 100% pass rate on the national exam, which exceeds the national average. Our students work all over the country in a wide variety of places. Anywhere you can find athletic trainers providing services, those are the kind of places our students work.
Really, one of my favorite things about being on faculty here is those relationships I build with our athletic training students, who I find are unbelievably smart, motivated, and go on to do great things after their time here.
More and more people realize the importance of having an athletic trainer on their sideline, at their high school, at their sports medicine clinic, as an outreach person in an industrial setting.
any place people are active, soccer fields, football fields, court sides, we really need the athletic trainer as a frontline healthcare provider. I think as we look forward and more attention is placed on the long-term safety and understanding the true burden of sports injury, we're going to see the important role that athletic trainers play, and we're going to need to see them in more and more settings.
The advice I would give for a prospective athletic training student is be ready to work hard, but that's a good thing. That's definitely how you learn a lot, is you work hard in your clinical setting, you work hard in the classroom, and all that comes together to make a great education that is renowned at UW-Madison.
Yeah, the nerve they have to make me work with kids like that. So essentially, let's see where we are. Perfect. So the students in my program come from all over the place. Obviously, we get lots of kids from Wisconsin, a few from Illinois and Minnesota. Occasionally, we'll get some from outlying areas, but it's very much a Midwest-centric program. And, you know, that's all nice, and we got to hear the kids talk about how much they love the program certainly warms my heart. But my real message is, why is this important? Why is athletic training important? Because I think it extends beyond just having someone to tape ankles and take care of some minor injuries and things. And, you know, sport has some consequences that can come with it. And I've often like to say that injury is the unwelcome house guest of physical activity. If people are going to be active, unfortunately, we're occasionally going to have some injuries that take place. There we go. The unwelcome house guest of physical activity. So a question that I try to instill in my students and when I talk to people is like, do we know the true burden of sports-related injury? What's the consequence of having a knee injury when you're 20, when you're 50? What's the consequence of having an ankle injury? So I also like to instill in my students that I think sports injury is a public health-related issue. Look, we need people to be active to address other health problems in our society. But if people are active, they're occasionally going to have injuries, and those injuries may have consequence. The better we can treat them and the better we understand them, we may be able to make a difference. So to cite the example before we get to the concussion stuff, I just want to talk about ankle sprains for a minute. Most common musculoskeletal injury, certainly the most common injury in basketball and soccer. It is responsible for a significant number of trips to the ER, but the potential for long-term disability, chronic instability, changes to your joint surfaces, that's very real. Increased incidence of osteoarthritis, decreased levels of physical activity. And we know that people who have chronic ankle sprains earlier in life, they have a lower health-related reported quality of life than people who haven't had that injury. So if we go back a few years, 2011, 1 million adolescents were playing basketball alone in the United States. 1 million, that's a bunch. 18,000 U.S. high schools are sponsoring teams. It's estimated $2 billion, with a B, $2 billion in total cost was spent to treat ankle injuries in 2010. That's an estimate based on insurance costs. Mom or dad has to take time off work, cost of x-rays, cost of a doctor's visit, lost wages, transfer. That's that whole consumer product safety formula. Even if they're off by $1 million or $2 million, that's a stunning amount of money. If we can make a change in something as simple as ankle injuries, we can have an impact on healthcare in this country. And that's when I try to instill in my students, we need to think bigger and think in a public health lens that we're doing more than just hanging on the sidelines taking care of the Badgers. That's fun. I love it. I did it for 14, 15 years. But there's a bigger picture that we can give to the athletic training field. So can we reduce ankle injuries? Well, of course we can. In fact, very smart people right here at UW-Madison have shown that balance interventions, we can decrease the incidence of ankle injuries. The use of ankle braces in a big statewide study in football and basketball showed a decrease in ankle injuries and a significant decrease for people who have a prior history of ankle injuries. Well, one of the problems, though, how do we get the good information out there for people to use it? So even though we have information out there that shows these things are effective, over half of the coaches we surveyed were not promoting these strategies. Half of them were not promoting the use of ankle injuries or the ankle exercises. So we got a lot of work to do, and we need to get people to think more about these injuries through this public health lens. I happen to think the athletic trainer is the key health provider on the front lines to help make some of these messages happen and to help bring this information to the public in a variety of settings. Again, sports injury is a public health issue, and if we think of things through a public health lens, we need to think more about prevention. We need to understand the burden of injury. We need to think about what are community-based interventions that are going to be helpful, and we have to think about education and advocacy. And it's this last topic, education and advocacy, that we're going to hear about from my students. Outcome measures, understanding the impact of injury. This is a pet area of mine. I think the more feedback we get from people and how these injuries impact their life, the more helpful that's going to be. So we're going to talk briefly about concussion. It's a hot topic in the news. Estimated about 300,000 concussions take place in sport annually. The majority of those are in football, followed by girls soccer, boys wrestling, and girls basketball. But it's football and ice hockey that have the highest rate of concussion. So they may have the highest rate based on participants versus the total number. We know these occur across all sports. We know these occur for boys and girls. We need more research on how the impact on girls' injury, because I think a lot of the sport research right now is focusing on boys' injuries. And in response to this increased in response to this increased attention on concussion, I think this is being driven by several things. There's been some very high-profile cases coming out of the NFL. People who have died at a young age, taken their own lives at a young age, and people are trying to make an association between this chronic traumatic encephalopathy, CTE, or these deposits of the tau protein, this progressive disease of the brain, to repeated impacts of the head. The literature is a bit all over the map. A true causal relationship would be difficult to establish at this point in time, but there clearly seems to be some level of association going on here that has many, many people trying to make better sense of what's happening with these professionals. So very fortunately, my students, being the folks who are looking for different things to do, in 2012 they formed an organization called the Athletic Training Students for Brain Safety. And I'm going to have a few of my students come up and share their work on the AT Students for Brain Safety, talk about some of the things that they're doing in the community, and then we'll be able to answer some questions. We'll have plenty of time. So I'd like to introduce, in no particular order, I have Bailey Lonzer from West Bend, Wisconsin, who's a senior, Erin McQuillan from Neenah, Wisconsin, who is a senior, and Emily Campbell from down the road in Sun Prairie, Wisconsin, who I believe is a junior. And I'm going to turn it over. This is where, if you're an instructor at the university, this is where you get like you're kind of nervous, but not too much. They're going to do a great job. They're going to talk a little bit about their organization, then we'll all answer some questions. So, ladies.
Hello, everyone. As Dr. Winterstein said, my name is Erin McQuillan. I'm the Brain Safety Coordinator for our student organization. Bailey here is the president of our student organization, and Emily is the vice president. We're so excited to be here today, and thank you very much for the opportunity. So, our mission is to allow students in the athletic training program to better the community by educating the general public on prevention, recognition, and management of brain injuries. This organization educates the students of the university and surrounding communities about brain injury issues that may affect the general population.
Excuse the little shuffle we're going to do here. One of our main projects that we recently started is our student organization wrote for a Baldwin grant. There are kind of mini grants that are given to different student organizations who want to do things throughout the community and kind of expand the range of what their student organization does. Luckily, last year we actually won this grant, and what it was for is we're going to try to develop a statewide chapterization of our organization. So the goal is to have different brain safety organizations throughout the different universities in Wisconsin, kind of to promote brain safety in the to the general public. And we're really going to chapterize that and kind of bounce ideas off of each other that way. So we were pretty excited that we were able to do that. So I was so excited Dr. W invited me to come here today. If you ask my friends and family, this is one of my favorite things to talk about, probably more so than they want to hear. But one of the main things we really wanted to see for our organization, how can we go beyond the university setting? How can we reach out to the community? What's kind of an untapped audience that we can use for brain safety? One of the main things we thought, so we really focus on educating the general public, whether that be other university students, whether that be high school students, whether that be even children and their parents. And so that's kind of the goal of a lot of our different events that we participate in, or things that we put on around the Madison community. So this is just a kind of list. We're going to give you a little bit more detail about some of our big events that we do throughout the year, and just kind of show you what we've been up to. So the first one that we participated in this year is called Rennie's Corner. It was held at the Wisconsin Institute of Discovery. And what it was is it was set up as a way to tell your story kind of as your organization. And there was about 5 different student organizations that throughout the month of October, you could set up a station and tell what your organization has been up to, different things that you've done in the community. And it was just for any general passerby, people who come through the WID, and to check out kind of what you're doing. And we helped promote brain safety that way and educated them about the different risks with brain injury and other Madison events that we had coming up. So that was kind of at that.
All right, so along with Vice President, I also serve as High School Outreach Coordinator for our organization. And the huge goal of this is just to reach out to students that are in the local high schools and talk to them about their opportunities to promote athletic training, brain safety. We go to some of the high schools on this slide, and we just talk to their anatomy classes. Some have medical sciences classes, which is really amazing. And we just sort of promote athletic training as a medical field that they can enter. We inform them on how to get more involved. If they're interested in entering athletic training, we tell them how they can do so at the University of Wisconsin-Madison. And we also talk about our role in brain safety and just how to become more involved in that. And then we also do at the Wisconsin Institute of Discovery, we have these Saturday science days where we can reach out to even younger people, and we have kids from like 3 to 15 come, and they can come and balance on a foam pad, and we wrap their wrists in tape, and they just love it. And it's a really great opportunity to promote athletic training at even a younger age. So we really love doing that. And they come with their parents, so we can tell their parents more about the importance of wearing helmets during bikes, when they're riding bikes, wearing helmets when they play football, all kinds of stuff like that.
So sort of our biggest event to date here was just this past Saturday. We hosted a thematic session. We have every couple years a alumni event where we have UW-Madison AT program alumni come back and speak. So in the morning we had this, and in the afternoon the Brain Safety Club was able to organize this thematic session where we had 4 speakers come and talk about concussion management, CTE, and the incidence of concussions in high school athletes before and after the new WIA practice laws. So it was really exciting. We were kind of, we impressed ourselves a little bit with the fact that we were able to pull it together. So it was a really great afternoon, and it helped raise a lot of awareness, not just with the students in our program, but these kind of impressive speakers were able to see what we're doing. And so it was a really, really great afternoon. And we're hoping in the future to have this sort of event every few years and host it at the different schools that we are recruiting to start brain safety chapters. So finally here we have some future goals. We're looking to chapterize throughout the state of Wisconsin. So far we've received interest from Concordia University, UW-Eau Claire, UW-La Crosse, Marquette University, and UW-Stevens Point. And this past Saturday at our brain safety event, we had student representatives from Eau Claire, La Crosse, and Marquette come. So we were able to sort of start things out and talk with them and share ideas. So that was very exciting for us. We're hoping to advance to regional chapterization. We'll be attending the Great Lakes Athletic Training Association meeting next month. So we're hoping to sort of get that started. And we're hoping, as I mentioned earlier, for this sort of annual meeting idea exchange. But I think there's a lot of places to go from here, and we're very excited about our opportunities.
Clearly you can see this is a representative sample from my program, so the best thing I can do is kind of stay out of their way. What I love most about their little presentation today is that we didn't see anything about football, we didn't see anything about sport. There's plenty of work going on in that area, but what these guys are doing are talking to kids about bike helmets, talking to people about brain safety in other areas. On our campus, we're going to see as many or more concussions that are related to bike accidents, scooter accidents, recreational play, what I affectionately call Langdon Street injuries, than we are of almost equal amount to what we have with regards to sport. So this isn't just a conversation for our athletes. I think it's a conversation for our community. And the students are doing a wonderful job. And I think when you, if I could harken back to my earlier slide about athletic training as a public health issue, this is exactly the kind of public health mindset that we need to bring to those problems. So I think I'm very biased. We have a very fine program here in our own community, and we're happy to be able to talk to anybody at any time about our program and the kinds of things we're doing. And as a wonderful subset of that program, the AT Students for Brain Safety, I think, are making a genuine impact. So I just want to, again, thank everybody for letting us come out and just share a couple minutes of info with you. And we'd be glad to answer a question or two, I believe. We have time? Okay. I see one right here.
I enjoyed your presentation very much.
Thank you.
And consider one of the most important things to do at the University of Wisconsin. And in order, I have to tell you about myself. My name is Manucher Javid, but as far as the Rotary is concerned, for the past 48 years, they call me Mitch. Outside, nobody knows Mitch. But anyway, as have 7 years of postgraduate residency when I graduated from University of Illinois in 1946, and I came here in January of 1953. I was on the faculty for 45 and a half years, and I was in charge of the faculty neurosurgery for 50 years, and I'm the founder of the Department of Neurosurgery, which happened near the end of my being here. The reason I say this, because I have been involved more than anyone, you see, for 50 years, and taking care of 5 years, 7 years.
So you can talk. Yeah.
So in any way, the reason I have a question to ask you, but I have to give you the background because that's very important until you can answer my question.
I'm a little nervous, but go ahead.
No. On April of 1960, there was a fellow by the name of Charlie Moore. I'm afraid most of you have never heard of him. And he was a champion boxer and boxed at in Madison, and he received a very serious injury. And so much so that as soon as he went to the dressing room, he collapsed. His pupils were fixed and dilated, stopped breathing, completely unconscious. They called me, and I went there right away to University Hospital, and I had him on the table for 20 minutes from the time that they brought him into hospital. The only thing I did was a skull x-rays. You remember those days, there were no MRI, CT scan, or any of those things. And, but I removed, this was one of the worst cases that I have taken care of. And I've taken care of huge amount of patients over all these years. And his major vein near head here had been sheared off from the sagittal sinus. And it was actually, they opened this thing. And I also was the one who introduced hypertonic solutions, and I used that because that would bring the brain down. And huge amount. came out. So there was absolutely no question that this was due to head injury and absolutely nothing else. There's an excellent article, both Doug Moe and the one in the Smithsonian. You should all read the article in the Smithsonian because he has done a tremendous job on this and really exposed everything here. And they were very unhappy about this. And one person who had been very much involved with, was a surgeon actually, he said that this patient had died from aneurysm, which was really a joke. And so this got in the literature. A sport illustrator called me, and this was all over the country. To make a very long story short, during about 2 weeks or so, the university stopped interscholastic group all over the United States. And so I was extremely involved with this. And so we had many meetings with President Albiom and some of the others. I'm giving you all this background. So I was pleased that this dangerous sport, boxing is not a safe sport. I probably, in my experience, I would say that's the most dangerous of all the sports. And so at least he saved people at the university. That poor Charlie Moore kept him alive. He really had for 5-6 days and died. And he was a wonderful guy. So anyway, I was really dismayed and shocked 2-3 years ago when I found out that a club has been formed at Wisconsin. Now, there are clubs also, some in the East Coast, some in the West Coast, but of all places, see, at Wisconsin, and I wanted to ask you, what is the status of this club? How many students are there? And exactly, I mean, do they realize, see, what had happened?
Thank you very much, and that is a very important history in intercollegiate athletics to understand why boxing doesn't exist now. I personally don't think as a healthcare provider you can in good conscience support a sport where the objective of the sport is to inflict a brain injury on your opponent. So that's a challenging one that I think people have to come to terms with on their own. As far as the boxing club, there were some folks who spoke against the development of the boxing club, but I can, from my level of understanding, as it is very much about fitness training, punching the heavy bag, punching the speed bag, and that there is no active sparring, competition, fighting, or anything along those lines. That's how it's been explained to me. So I know as someone on campus who has an interest in these things, we expressed our concerns and our stance against it, given the history on our own campus. So to my understanding, the way it's been explained, it's more of a fitness club. It is not, there's no active fighting.
I have a question. I have the microphone. You mentioned the tau protein. How is the tau protein seen in the brain? Does it build up over time? And is it functional MRI, or what do you use to determine the tau protein
Well, I may have to bring our neuroscientist up to help. That's a bit outside of my academic wheelhouse. My understanding is that at this point in time we don't have an in vivo, or while someone is alive, ability to test for that. And it is seen in many different neurodegenerative conditions, and that where it's been associated with repetitive brain trauma has been in the autopsies of some very high-profile football players. So, and unfortunately, it's also been seen in smaller degrees in some younger people who have played in sport, who have also passed away early. So there's a variety of levels of how much of the tau deposits they see, and that it's fairly specialized post-mortem, where they take cellular slices of the brain to look for the deposits of the protein. So that's a bit outside my area.
Another question.
One more, down to one.
This is not on the brain thing, but another injury that happens that can go on to a chronic condition is pars fractures in the spine of young people. And I just wonder what, if anything, you guys are discovering about prevention, and also I know it's got a very low cure rate and it's only managed going forward.
Yeah, so that's a stress reaction injury, often seen in sports with lots of extension of the spine. So divers, gymnasts, offensive linemen, if you ever look at offensive linemen in football, they tend to have a bit of a belly, and then their spine is arched quite a bit. So there's repetitive extension of the spine, and that's a stress reaction injury that can go on to a full fracture injury. And you're absolutely correct. I think in terms of prevention is really trying to identify and catch them early and provide those patients with appropriate rehabilitation, and it's mostly stabilization type programs. But those can be a difficult injury if they progress.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, ladies.
Okay.